Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into something really insightful today, based on some material you shared with us, excerpts from a podcast and chill transcript on the Learn English podcast YouTube channel. It's all about victim mentality.
That's right. And, the main idea right from the start is that feeling like a victim, it isn't just about the bad stuff that happens. We all face challenges. It's more about the story you keep telling yourself about those challenges.
Narrative.
Exactly, that narrative. And that's actually where the power to change things really lies. So in this deep dive, we'll unpack the signs of this mindset, maybe where it comes from, the impact it has, and crucially, some practical ways to start reshaping that story.
Absolutely, because let's be honest, life throws curveballs, right? We all have moments where things feel tough.
For sure.
But what we're digging into today using the source material is when that temporary feeling kind of hardens into like a default setting, your go-to way of thinking. So let's get into it. What exactly is a victim mentality?
Okay, so at its core, it's this belief, often quite deep-seated, that the bad things happening in your life are, well, mostly caused by things outside of you, things you can't control.
Like the world's out to get you kind of thing.
Yeah, that kind of feeling. The deck is stacked against you. And the transcript you sent points out, look, a lot of people can relate to this feeling, especially, after big setbacks, losing a job, a relationship ending.
Right, those times when you feel completely powerless, like you're just being dragged along by events. But the transcript makes a really key distinction there, doesn't it?
It really does.
Mm.
Feeling that way sometimes. Totally normal. Human, even.
Mm.
The issue, the real problem, is when it becomes your main way of seeing the world, your default explanation for, well, everything.
Okay, so it's not the bad event itself, it's the filter you constantly view things through, the reaction pattern.
Precisely. It shifts from just, like, a temporary feeling to your fundamental outlook on life.
Got it. So if it's about this consistent lens, what are the clues? What signs might suggest someone, maybe even, ourselves, is operating from this mindset, according to the source?
Yeah, the transcript lays out a few key indicators pretty clearly. One big one is constantly shifting blame. The phrase, "it's not my fault," becomes almost like a reflex.
A knee-jerk reaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They even give that example, which is kind of funny, but illustrates the point. Blaming your slow Wi-Fi on the neighbor.
Huh. Yeah, okay. I can see how that fits the pattern, even if it seems small. What else?
Another major sign is that pervasive feeling of powerlessness. Just feeling like, well, there's nothing I could do anyway. It's sort of the extreme end of just shrugging and saying, it is what it is.
Right, like being totally resigned to the situation, even if maybe there is something you could do.
Precisely. And it's interesting how that feeling can just seep into everything.
Mm-hmm.
The transcript also mentions another big one, constantly comparing yourself to others.
Oh, the comparison trap.
Yeah, and always feeling like you got the short end of the stick. Everyone else has it better. Why me?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of loop. Especially like with social media feeding those comparisons constantly.
Yeah. Scrolling through everyone else's perfect life pictures, that can definitely make you feel like you drew the short straw.
It's such an easy trap. And the transcript really stresses these signs. They're not just minor things. They're kind of like warning lights, suggesting it might be time to check your perspective.
Okay. So, recognizing the signs is step one. But why do people fall into this way of thinking? It's not like anyone wakes up and decides, I want to feel powerless today. What are the roots here?
That's a great question. And yeah, nobody chooses it consciously. The transcript highlights a few common contributing factors. One major one is past experiences, things like trauma or maybe repeated big failures.
Right. Things that genuinely did make you feel powerless at the time.
Exactly. They can leave behind this deep sense that you just can't influence what happens.
Huh.
And this is where the transcript brings in Martin Seligman's research on learned helplessness.
Learned helplessness. Okay, tell us a bit more about that.
Right. So Seligman's work basically found that if individuals or even animals in his studies are repeatedly put in bad situations, they can't escape. Eventually, they stop trying to escape, even when an escape route opens up later.
Wow. So they learn that nothing they do matters?
Pretty much. They learn helplessness. The transcript suggests that a similar thing can happen to people after, a string of really negative life experiences. They start to believe they lack control. But the key thing is, even after those experiences, the ability to act often still exists. It's the belief in that ability that gets damaged.
That makes a disturbing amount of sense. If you keep hitting walls, you might eventually just stop trying to find a door. What else contributes?
Another really interesting point from the transcript is how sometimes society itself can accidentally reinforce this victim identity.
How?
Well, think about the reactions people often get when they seem like a victim. Sympathy, extra support, maybe even financial help sometimes. Now, researchers mentioned NSYNC and Kaplan looked into this. Their work suggested this positive attention, while well-intentioned.
Can actually keep someone stuck in that role.
It potentially can, yeah. If someone finds their needs are primarily met, or they get the most connection, when they're in that perceived victim state, it can unintentionally strengthen that way of identifying themselves, even subconsciously.
Yeah, that's a tricky one because offering support feels like the right human thing to do.
It absolutely is. It's not about stopping support. It's just understanding this potential dynamic, that the reinforcement might inadvertently perpetuate the mindset.
Okay, a very nuanced point. What was the third root cause mentioned?
The third one they talked about is developing what's called a victim lens. Imagine putting on glasses that filter everything negatively.
So you only see things that confirm your belief that things are bad for you?
Pretty much. You selectively notice the negative stuff, the setbacks, the unfairness, and you tend to ignore or downplay anything positive or any opportunity. It becomes like confirmation bias, but for negativity about your own life.
That sounds like a really tough cycle to break. Constantly looking for proof that the world is against you.
It is a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. And as you can guess, living with this kind of lens, this habitual thinking, it doesn't just feel bad. It has real, tangible negative effects. The transcript talks about the harm it causes.
Right, let's talk about that. Beyond just feeling down, how does this actually mess things up in someone's life?
Well, relationships often take a hit. Think about it. If you're constantly blaming people or always seem helpless, it can be really draining for friends, partners, family.
Yeah, I can imagine that gets old fast. Pushes people away.
Definitely. The transcript notes that people might start to pull back, and then there's personal growth.
How does it affect that?
Well, if your core belief is nothing I do matters anyway, why would you take risks? Why try new things? Why push yourself?
You wouldn't. You'd just stay stuck.
Exactly. It really holds you back, limits your potential. It's like keeping the car in park because you don't believe you can actually drive it anywhere. It stifles growth.
That's a powerful image, being stuck in neutral. And the transcript mentioned overall well-being, too.
Yes, it connects the dots, impacts on relationships, achieving goals, and even just general mental and physical health. The constant stress, the negativity, it takes a toll.
Okay, so we've got a handle on what it is, the signs, where it might come from, and why it's so damaging. Now, the really important bit, how do you actually start to, break free? The transcript offered some actual steps, right?
It did, absolutely. And these are the real gems for anyone listening who thinks, maybe some of this applies to me. The very first step, the foundation, according to the transcript, believing change is actually possible.
Just the belief itself.
Yeah, recognizing you have the power to change your mindset. If you don't believe it's possible, you won't even try. Step one is opening up to that possibility.
Makes sense. You need that initial spark of hope or determination. What's next?
Then it's about actively paying attention, monitoring those negative thoughts as they pop up.
Yeah.
Really noticing when you think, oh, this is out of my control or it's their fault again.
Becoming aware of that internal soundtrack. Okay, so you notice the thought. Then what?
Then you challenge it. The transcript suggests asking yourself actively, okay, wait, what can I actually do here, even if it's small?
Shifting from I can't to what can I?
Exactly. And this links back to that research I mentioned earlier by Judge and Bano, showing how much believing you have personal control impacts your life outcomes.
Yeah.
It's about consciously looking for your agency, your bit of control in the situation. It's like grabbing the steering wheel, even if you can only turn it a little bit at first.
Taking the wheel. I like that. It feels active, not passive. What else helps?
Starting small is key. The transcript really emphasizes this. Don't try to change everything overnight. Just make one tiny, manageable change.
Like what kind of change?
Could be anything. Making one phone call you've been avoiding. Tidying one small corner of your room. Completing one small task. It builds momentum. Each small win proves to yourself, hey, I can make things happen.
Okay, so small steps build confidence and chip away at that feeling of powerlessness. Makes it seem less daunting. Any other strategies?
Yes, practicing gratitude. This was highlighted too. Even when things are really rough, consciously looking for tiny things to appreciate.
It's like your morning coffee?
Yeah. or a nice walk, someone holding a door open, anything. The transcript explains that doing this intentionally shifts your focus. It forces your brain to notice the good stuff, the positives, which can help kind of reset that negative filter even when things feel like they're um, falling apart. That was one of the phrases they used.
Right, actively scanning for the good, not just the bad. That makes sense.
It really does retrain your focus. And the final big strategy mentioned is taking responsibility.
Oh, the tough one.
Often the toughest, yeah. Especially if blaming has become a habit. It means consciously fighting that urge to point fingers, even when it feels justified, and asking instead, okay, what was my part in this? What can I learn? What could I do differently next time?
So moving from blame to learning and ownership.
Exactly. Yeah. And the transcript is clear. This isn't instant. It's a process. It takes time, practice, and being kind to yourself along the way. Self-compassion is important.
It definitely sounds like a journey, not a quick fix. Reclaiming your sense of power. Now, you mentioned the transcript also highlighted some vocabulary, like those phrases. Why was that included?
Well, language shapes how we understand things,
Yeah.
right? Knowing phrases like fall into something or hold somebody back or pick oneself up, it just adds another layer.
Makes the concepts more concrete.
Yeah, and helps you articulate your own experiences, maybe. Phrases like draw the short straw, hold on to something, rain on one's parade, click into place, break free, fall apart, snap out of it. They're all part of the language around this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing them helps understanding.
Gotcha. So it adds richness to the understanding.
Hmm.
Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive based on the material you shared, what's the main takeaway, the core message for our listeners?
I think the absolute core message is you are not stuck. Your circumstances don't have to define you forever. You have agency. You have the power to change your narrative, to move away from feeling like a victim towards feeling, well, empowered.
And the way to do that involves those steps we talked about, noticing the negative thoughts, asking what can I control, practicing gratitude, and crucially, taking responsibility.
Exactly right. It's about conscious awareness and consistent small efforts.
So here's something to maybe reflect on, inspired by everything we've explored today. Thinking about this victim mentality, what's maybe one small, doable step you feel you could take this week? Just one thing to shift your perspective or take a tiny bit more control in some area of your life.
That's a great question to leave people with. It encourages putting it into action, doesn't it?
Yeah, really making it practical. Because breaking free, as we said, it's about recognizing your own strength and making the choice step by step to use it. Thank you so much for sharing this material with us, and thanks to all of you for joining us on this deep dive.